Okay, it's time to call this special call board meeting of the San Felipe del Rio Consolidated Independent School District Board of Trustees. Today, Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. Madam Secretary, will you call roll?
Ms. Becky Chavez, not here. Mr. Overfeld,
Present.
Ms. Gonzalez, here. Mr. Mesa,
Here.
Ms. Haynes, not here. Mr. Galindo, not here. And myself, sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Let the record show that we do have a quorum, that this meeting was duly called and posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. This time we'll have open ceremonies. First, with the moment of silence, for personal reflection. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. No citizens to be heard, no one in attendance. So at this time, the only item that we have is item 13A, consideration to approve the comprehensive annual financial report for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Dave Childers.
Good afternoon, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Today we have with us Mr. Robert Belt with our auditing firm of Belt Harris Petchesek, and he is here to present our 2021-2022 audited financial reports.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to join the meeting remotely. Saved quite a drive to Del Rio, as you was quite a passion. And so I appreciate that greatly. And then also like to just recognize all the hard work upon management of the district in terms of all the laws and regulations that they have to comply with during the year, the volume of payroll transactions and bills being paid, everything else being handled by the district However, there were none of those types of findings, which is great news. We do have one forward-looking comment regarding an accounting change that is coming up next year, but it does require some lead time to stay ahead of that particular accounting change regarding subscription-based agreements for software. So we're just wanting to make sure that the district is well aware of that accounting change coming up, so we've included that within the management letter. But again, that is a forward-looking comment, nothing that the district has done wrong at all in that regard. With that being said, I'll just kind of jump over to, you were only going to look at one page in the report in terms of trying to pull some numbers out. Page 30 would be the page we'll look at. The general fund is presented in the far left-hand column. This is your total revenue expenditures and changes in fund balance for the year. The general fund had total revenues for the year of $97,286,000. Expenditure came in at $95,567,000. After taking into account other financing sources and uses that were net of $297,000, you had a positive increase to your fund balance of $2,049,000. You began the year with a fund balance of $43,323,000 and ended the year with a fund balance of $45,372,000. As you're well aware, most financial advisors, bond rating agencies, and things of that nature look at your fund balance as a percentage of your operating budget to determine the overall financial health of the government entity. They will be typically looking to have expressing that percentage as the number of days of expenditures on hand. And so 30 days would typically be minimum, 60s would be good, 90 would be very good. And so the district almost has a full year, half a year of its operating expenditure in fund balance. So that is an excellent fund balance position to have. So you're to be commended on your strong fund balance position. Overall, great results. And again, I think management should be commended for their high remarks. And if you were otherwise able to receive the first rating indicator, there's nothing in this financial document that would prevent you from receiving the first rating. Anyway, very pleased to entertain any questions the board may have.
No questions.
I think the only question I have is, we have pending litigation on some of the wind farm and the wire fraud. I don't know if we received the last of it, which was somewhere in the amount of $400,000.
So on the pending litigation, like I mentioned in the board update, the court sided with the political entities, but we expect that the appeal will be a little bit more difficult. So we can't count on any of that money yet. As far as the wire fraud, we recovered all but there might be $150,000 left to recover. The FBI is going through the process on that, so that's minimal. I don't expect the fund balance to increase greatly with either of those two issues. Certainly not the wire fraud. That's been just about resolved. The litigation with the wind farms, I think that's going to be a while before anything's resolved, and I don't expect that our fund balance would improve over the next year over that. I think it'd be longer than that to resolve it.
Any additional funds with, as far as the pipelines that have gone through Belmar County?
Again, I don't expect to see any increases for that. I think with the pipelines, the way that the taxing office described it, it's not going to have an effect on our overall income. And if it does, it would just only be offset by the way the state does their funding. So I think that we're in a good position. I don't think that our position is going to be improved by anything that's outstanding right now, including the pipelines.
Anything on solar energy farms that are coming in?
No, sir.
Would that be in Belgrade County?
the solar panels, the discussion is that yes, it would be. But I haven't heard enough to know if they're gonna be asking for some type of agreement, which again wouldn't help us any, just like the wind farms. I don't expect that our financial position will be improved by anything that's outstanding. If anything, the businesses that are coming in, the small businesses, those might improve a little bit, but nothing that's gonna solve any future funding issues at all. It's just not gonna get any worse, but it's not gonna get better. I don't expect, Amy, that the tax compression would hurt us anymore in the following year, correct?
Should not.
Yeah. So I think that our budget is pretty stable. What we have to do is just control, control's probably not a word, just decrease some of the expenditures that we have to make us more efficient. Because I do not see any additional funds coming in, other than what the state will increase in their allotment. And a lot of it is going to be earmarked for safety, and then the rest will just be their adjustments.
Anyone else have a question? Okay.
Right? Read the recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the audit report for the 2021-2022 fiscal year as presented.
There's a recommendation, I'll entertain a motion. Ms. Gonzalez make the motion, Mr. Orfeld make the second. All those in favor? Motion carries by 4 votes. Yes, sir.
I know the issue's over, but I did want to mention that one of the reasons that our fund balance increased by $2 million, if we remember at the beginning of the year, we recommended to decrease the amount of money that we were providing towards the health benefits because our health benefit insurance was very positive. And I believe was it 1.2? What was it decreased by?
Yes,
About, I think
1.5.
Almost 1.5. Otherwise, our budget would have been about the same. Okay. So, something to note.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
day.
sir. Appreciate you.
Bye.
It sounds great, I mean, with the fund balance. Yeah, the only thing is, if we, with these bonds that we have had in the past, I know you mentioned it once that we might be able to borrow money to continue with some of the, especially, with some of the properties that we have, Cardwell and the high school, in regard to making it more secure.
What we would have to do, and we're still waiting for, what's the company, Amy? The ones that are helping us determine.
Mo Casey.
We're still waiting on Mo Casey to send us a determination of, what cents would be paid off, so that then we can maybe pay off another one, and then, how do we tell the voters, okay, look, it's no new taxes, it's just the same. But again, that's a long-term project. The money that we have to work with right now is the money that we have because we started the budget in July 1 versus September 1. So that's still part of that increased fund balance. So we do have some money to work with. It's just not enough to take care of 100% of what needs to happen, even in terms of security. So we just have to be cautious with that.
Okay, if we pay off our bonds, taxes wouldn't go up anymore, but we would keep the same rate
Yes, sir.
that we have in the bonds.
Correct. Absolutely.
But does the public have to take a vote on it?
Yes, sir.
They do?
Yes, sir. where the public doesn't have to take a vote. So let's say that we have 5 bonds. Then we pay this bond off. The board can choose to keep the tax rate the same to pay off the next bond. So then you put this bond paid off and this bond paid off, and now we have 2 bonds paid off. So at that point, you say, okay, now there's enough capacity within the current tax rate to go out for a bond and not increase the taxes. We can borrow enough for what we need, but for that, the voters would have to vote. It's in continuing the same tax rate to pay existing debt that the board can take an annual vote on it, but not to borrow more money to go spend. That one definitely has to go out for bond election.
And then one more question, which is, there's talk that this legislative session is going to address facility allotment.
Yes, sir, but only as far as the instructional facilities allotment and where they end up paying up to half of the debt. If you go out for a bond, they would assume half the debt after the first year that you pay it. That's where I've heard that they're gonna go back and try to beef up that program. But again, we have to go out for a bond, and the voters have to vote for it, and then they'll give you what you qualify for. Which all our bonds are under that program right now. All our bonds qualified under the previous instructional facilities law.
My understanding is that the bond procedure changed quite a bit.
It did because now you have to show more due diligence, and I know that there was one of the sessions that we went to, they talked about how there was just more checks, more transparency, but as far as how you borrow the money in the elections, that really hasn't changed.
There's also an effort to erase that statement that says that taxes will increase. It will be an increase in taxes.
What's that disclosure that you read?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, no other action, so is there a motion for adjournment? Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. All those in favor? Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being in attendance today.